Babatunde, for making time. Perhaps looking at the property market in Africa, there's still limited adoption of alternative building technology. And what's the reason behind this?
Well, thank you for having me. I think you have to address the fact that it's a cultural issue. If I were to ask you right now, your dream house, if you were to close your eyes and imagine what your dream house is, it's probably not made out of plastic or straw. Most people in Africa tend to have a high preference for brick and mortar. They feel that it's more stable, it's more durable. And what we're battling at the moment is a cultural issue. And it's an issue that really can't be solved till government starts to participate with alternative building materials.
And speaking about alternative building materials, there's a lot of technologies that can be brought on board. Perhaps talk to us about some of these technologies. I know Shelter Freak is organizing a competition to have people come up with designs. What will you be looking out for in this kind of search for talent, really?
Well, we will look at people who advance the ideas of alternative building technologies. What we're actually keen on is efficiency, the design, and economy as well. What we're challenging developers to come up with a model that costs no more than $5,000 US, which is the equivalent of 500,000 Kenyan shillings. And we believe that this can be done. One of the ways perhaps is to employ alternative building technology. So we expect to see quite some innovative solutions.
All right. And of course, some of those building technologies that are now being used across the globe is the precast technology, where you're able to build your house in even less than 2 months. You have a structure in place. Has this got some cost implications in terms of savings at the end of the day?
It does, but the truth is it's not really efficient for the developer themselves. Now, as far as Africa is concerned, most of those prefab materials are going to be imported. So they're going to have to transfer the cost to the end user. And when the prefab material needs to be managed or maintained, it's a bit expensive as well. So while that has worked in other economies, Africa probably is not at that stage for prefab material till we develop a sustainable value chain.
And speaking about a sustainable value chain, do you have the right legislation in place to allow for this? Because the building code says a lot about technologies a country can take on.
To be honest, the housing sector is really not going to move forward without government participation, and one of the key aspects of that is policy as well. Some of the policies that have been put in place are the policies that we inherited from the colonial masters, and some of them haven't been revised. Without government participation, to answer your question, quite frankly, we're hamstringing ourselves.
And what sort of examples can we borrow from other jurisdictions in Africa, like South Africa, Egypt? And the list is endless that have been able to walk down this path.
One of the key examples you would have to look at Morocco, and perhaps not even go too far. You look across the border, Ethiopia. They've embarked on one of probably the most ambitious housing project in Africa, and they were able to do this because they subsidized the cost of land for developers. Now, these are some of the initiatives that we're asking our shareholders, 44 African countries, to look at, to emulate, because once again, without government participation, really we're knocking our heads against the wall.
And as we wrap up this conversation, Babatunde, what's your outlook like for the real estate industry in Africa, bearing in mind also Kenya, which has shown some great optimism in the recent past, really?
The truth is there's an oversaturation at the high end of the market. There's a glut right now. If you go to some of the areas in Runda and Karen, you find a lot of houses that are unoccupied. Our focus is Shelter Freak, and the outlook has to be how to address the bottom of the pyramid, how to make housing more affordable for those that can least afford it. And hopefully, with the competition and other such initiatives, we start to see that sector being addressed.
And I can't let you go without asking you, there are different perceptions about alternative technology that people say, hey, this thing is low quality, your house won't stand the test of time. What's your view on this, and how do we come out of this kind of mentality?
The evidence suggests otherwise. You have houses that have been built with ABTs and they've stood the test of time. In fact, one of our partners, Moladi in South Africa, what he does to market is that he builds a house the conventional way with bricks and mortar, then he builds a house with his plastic material. And consumers can't tell the difference.
All right.
And like I said, if you want to drive ABTs, for example, get the government to ask their senior officials to live in ABT houses.
Interesting. Well, and we want to now wrap up that conversation. Many thanks, Babatunde Oyateru, who is a property expert who works for Shelter Frick, just giving us some interesting insights regarding the property landscape in the country. Well, moving